Shazam. We have been talking about Shazam for a while and how excited we are, how great these trailers have been. I've been excited for this film ever since. Well, first of all, I was big when they announced the director, but really, really big when they announced Zachary Levi was going to play it, because that told me, by getting that guy to be your lead, it told me what kind of film they were going to make. And it was the kind of film that I personally think was the exact right one to make. And anyway, we talked about on the show the other day that the social media embargo, they were lifting this social media embargo on the movie almost a month before the movie came out, taking a page out of Marvel's playbook when they're really confident in a film. So they did that, which was a great sign that Warner Brothers believes in it. And now, Rob, it looks like that was worth it. It looks like that was a good thing for them to do, because the social media reactions for this has come out. Listen to some of these reactions. Our friend Eric Davis from over there at Fandango, he wrote, Captain Marvel has a great 90s sci-fi vibe and tone, unlike any other Marvel movie. Wait a second, that's Captain Marvel. I pulled up the wrong one. Hold a second here. Let me get this, because there is a reaction from Eric. Hold a second.
All of this just made me even that much more excited. Just like we speculated that the movie was great. That's why they were lifting the social media embargo. And I too read a lot of these responses, and man, it just sounds like a delightful film that I can't wait to see.
Yeah, I had the wrong one up. But anyway, now let's go to what Eric said about Shazam. So I got Eric here. Eric wrote, Shazam is big, goofy, lovable, and unlike anything DC has done before. Definitely the vein of Tom Hanks' Big, but with a superhero with superhero action and lots of Batman and Superman references. I dug the film so much I wanted to give it a bear hug at the end of it, so that's great. IGN wrote, Shazam is DC's most joyful and sweet movie since the era of Christopher Reeve's Superman, a funny yet earnest coming-of-age story about a boy who learns that, well, with great power comes great responsibility. It doesn't reinvent the superhero movie wheel, but it's undeniably fun. Entertainment Tonight wrote, Shazam was damn near perfect in my book. My favorite DC movie, DCEU, whatever we're calling it now, by far, pure of heart, incredibly funny, full of in-jokes and references, brought me a childlike joy to watch. This role was made for Zachary Levi. Let's see here. Cinema Blend writes, DC is finally building a solid run. Shazam is a delight. It's a familiar origin structure, which is forgivable because of all the new that it brings to the table. Primarily, it's gleeful, childlike enthusiasm, and heartfelt perspective on family. It's also the role that Zachary Levi was born to play. The accolades go on. From comicbook.com, Shazam is such a brilliant movie. It's so tremendously fun and incredibly scary at some points, thanks to David F. Sandberg, who's got a background, obviously, as we know, in horror films. It blows away every expectation and is my new favorite DC movie. Gizmodo writes, Shazam is another win for DC. Sure, the humor and action you'd expect from a superhero film are there, but Shazam also stands out because of the emotional family story at its center. I had small issues with the hero/villain aspects, but the family stuff is dynamic and powerful. Our friend Peter from Slash Film writes, Shazam is parts Home Alone, parts Big, a crowd-pleasing, family-friendly, joy-filled, wish-fulfillment superhero film, which gets a bit over the top and cheesy at times, but it's fun and funny, and I'm always surprised at how much it wears its hearts on its sleeve. And guys, I mean, Rob, this thing, it's the accolades are huge for this. Now, and what's really exciting about it, Rob, is when I reflect back on the conversations we've had about what this looks like they're going for, getting a guy like Zachary Levi, our anticipation for this film, it sounds like it's living up to all those things. You're hearing all these reactions. What's your response?
I can't be more delighted by this, because whenever I see a movie that I'm looking forward to and it doesn't quite work as well as I think it should, it always bums me out. I mean, I think that every studio movie should be this clockwork perfected thing, and I when I hear something that I've anticipated that it's already bringing joy to the jaded genre pundit crowd, I can't be more excited. I mean, it's exactly what you and I have been talking about for months. And after seeing these trailers, I'm glad the movie lives up to that hype. I mean, they probably have another $1 billion grosser on their hands. And again, what's really interesting is they no longer will we be talking about how dark, you can't make dark DC universe movie jokes anymore. Between Aquaman and this, crowd pleasing, rousing entertainments, 4-quadrant entertainments that everybody can go see. I think it's great. It's great for everybody.
I absolutely agree. Now, do you think this, like, we were expecting good, but does this maybe exceed the reactions? Does this exceed what you were thinking, or is this right around on par where you thought the reactions were?
No,
gonna be?
I thought it was going to be good, but I was tempering my expectations. But clearly, it's great, and it's great. I mean, it's what I hoped. It's what I dared to hope. And I think it's fantastic. And, you know, it was very funny because when they first, remember when those first set photos dropped of Zachary Levi's costume,
yes,
and people were unrelentingly making fun of it. And I was like, but it looks like it's right out of the comic books. I mean, he looks so good on camera because it's that bright, shiny Shazam look. It's not supposed to look dark. You know, he looks great. And the fact that the lightning blast on his chest isn't just an emblem, like it's surging with energy. And I love it. I mean, I've always loved that costume. I think it's always looked great. I didn't know what people were bitching about. Now it's going to be iconic forever. And I love that.
Now, I will admit, I was one of the guys that said, I'm not sure that I'm feeling the look of the costume. Now, I also said, but who cares? It's just the costume. It's whatever. This movie's going to be great. But I admit, I was one of the guys that went, yeah, I admit I'm not feeling this. But you know, this just goes to show you sometimes these behind the scenes candid shots just don't really give a full picture of what it's going to look like and how it's going to play once you're actually immersed in the movie.
Well, I mean,
you know?
It's so funny because that scene where he's standing in the like 7-Eleven or whatever, the convenience store, and he's like, I would like your finest beer, please. And just the image of him in costume standing in a convenience store, that to me is the movie, because you're seeing this character that he's literally popping out of the reality. He's popping out of the real world he's supposed to inhabit. And that's exactly what the movie's about. You know, so the costume, they knew what they were doing. I mean, these costumes are sweated over, and they spend sometimes months trying to figure them out. And just seeing it on camera, I'm like, oh, well, they nailed that. And it's apparently they nailed everything else too. So that's fantastic. I can't wait to see this movie. My anticipation is, I mean, dude, April, Shazam, Hellboy, Game of Thrones, Endgame. And my mom's turning 80.
And
amazing.
So even more reason to celebrate. And, you know, this just kind of reaffirms something that I thought for a long time. You remember when they announced Walter Hamada was coming in to take over the DCEU and he was going to give new direction to the DCU, I was very encouraged by that because I like the guy's track record. And he brought in a new focus and a new direction. And we are now we're getting a better picture now. Now, Aquaman came out, great, that's one film. But now you got two in a row that looks like they're going to be winners. This is what they call in the business a winning streak.
Right.
This is a winning streak, which is something the DCU has not had before. I mean, for me personally, I've liked all the DCU movies, but I know a lot of people didn't, and that's fine. But this is going to be two films in a row that are going to be successful, that are going to win over the critics, and that are going to win over the audiences. And this is a winning streak. And if this is the new type of reality that Walter Hamada is bringing us, I think the DCU right now is on better footing than it's been in a long, long time. And you know, I've talked to a friend of mine who saw it, and he said, one of the things he said to me was that this really does kind of reemphasize what they've been talking about as far as they're moving away from the shared cinematic universe. Like, there's lots of references in this movie as jokes, but that it's clear they are isolating the movies now. And if Aquaman and Shazam seem to be any indication, it looks like that little experiment is working out real well. Now, what I'm waiting for now, Robert, is the barrage of all the people online saying that all these critics are just being paid off by Warner Brothers. So that's coming, right? That's what's coming up next, right? Because that's what happens, right? If any critics like the movie, it's because they were paid off by the studio, right? So where are these right now? Anyway, it is great to see the reaction to this. I've been excited about it. I'm so thrilled for Zachary Levi, who, you know, some people wondered, was he going to have a big career after Chuck? And here he is. And yet another actor who has one foot in the MCU because he was in one of the Thor movies, or two of the Thor movies technically, and one foot now in the DC universe.
What I also think is this is purely speculation on my part. I think this bodes well for a Flash movie. I think, they've had this movie in development for a long time. I'm sure part of their problem with developing a Flash movie is what direction were they going to go in? I mean, Flashpoint, if they were going to do that, all of reality has changed. People that were dead are no longer dead. I think it's clear now, after the sheer phantasmagoria fun of Aquaman, and now this, a crowd-pleasing, humorous romp. I think now they have a much better direction because of Aquaman and now Shazam, of where to take a Flash movie. And because I loved Ezra Miller's Flash. And
Me
I think
too.
that
I loved his character in that.
I did too. And I think now the tone, like what kind of a Flash movie were we going to make? And now they know. Now they've got a definite direction to head in. And I think, the revolving door of directors and scriptwriters, it might finally end and we might get a really great big screen Flash adventure.
Fingers crossed at this point. Let's see what Walter Mata has in mind, but it looks like this dude's on a winning streak.